Hello, Avon esteemed mathematicians. Today we're going to be interpreting numeric data, which is our 6th grade skill of 613A. And how are we going to be doing that? Well, we'll be interpreting numeric data in box plots. So this is important. We'll be looking at box plots, and we'll be interpreting the measures of shape, center, and spread. Remember, shape is what describes the distribution of a graph. Center describes middle points, so that's going to be our mean and our median. And spread talks about how far apart our data points are. So that refers to our range and our interquartile range. This is our learning target for today's lesson. So you will know that you've got it and you understand all the material when you can answer these two questions about this box plot. So I want us to take a moment and look at these two box plots and think about how they're alike and how they're different. So take a moment to pause the video, write down your list of what you notice, and then come back when you're done. All right, guys, welcome back. When I look at these, I notice that they have the same median. So I find that interesting. They have the same median. They have the same value for quartile 3. They do not have the same value for quartile 1. And I notice immediately that the value for quartile 1 for team B is way far to the left, which tells me that that box has a wider range. So team B probably has a greater interquartile range. They both have different minimums and maximums. And then I also wonder what their range is. I see that team B goes from 18 all the way to 30, so they have a range of 12. And then team A goes from 22 to 34, so their range is also 12. So they have the same range, but different interquartile ranges. They have the same median, the same third quartile, but different quartile 1s and different interquartile ranges. So keeping with that thought that we did in our warm-up, what do these box plots tell us? I see that they both have the same minimum, and then they also have the same exact maximum. This tells me they were going to have the same exact range. And their range goes from 7.5 to 3.5, which means their range is 4. They have different medians. Here's the median here, it's 5. And the median for music player Y is 4.5. And they're definitely going to have different interquartile ranges because player X's interquartile range goes from 4.5 to 6.5. So their IQR is actually 2. And music player Y goes from 4 to 5, so their IQR is only 1. So while they have the same range, so their minutes goes from the same smallest value to the same greatest value, music player Y actually has the most of their songs inside the 4 to 5 minute range, whereas music player X goes all the way from 4.5 to 6.5. So player X has more variability. And variability means it has a greater difference in kind of how spread apart the data is. So we're going to use this box plot to go through our statements and identify whether they're true or false. Students recorded the amount of liquid and fluid ounces each of them drank in one day. The box plot shows the summary of these results. The mean number of fluid ounces that the students drank is 78. Our box plot is a 5 data summary. It does not tell us our mean, so we do not have enough information to determine that. The data represents 78 student responses. Again, our box plot, which is our 5 data summary, simply breaks our data into quartiles, so we don't know the total number of responses here. So not enough information to determine. The greatest number of students drank from 30 to 78 ounces. So at this point, our minimum right here represents 30. And then our median right here represents 78. So they're saying the greatest number of students drank from 30 to 78 fluid ounces. I know that box plots break our graph into quartiles. So this part represents 25%. And then this part represents 25%. Well, that means that only 50% of our students drank from 30 to 78. So this can't be the greatest number. So this is not true. This is false. And we had enough information to determine that. And then our last one, half of the students, so 1/2, drank from 78 to 114 fluid ounces. Well, again, just like the previous one, from our median to our third quartile, that's 25% of responses. And then from our third quartile to our maximum, that represents another 25%, which means that from 78 to 14, that does represent 50% of our responses, which I know is equivalent to 1/2. So our final statement is true. The box plots summarize the attendance for the spring musical and the fall musical. Each musical was performed for 6 evenings. For half of the evenings at the spring musical, the attendance was between 115 and 200 people. So for half of the evenings, which means 50% of our data, it was from 115 to 200. That is not true. That from 155 to 200%, since it's from our minimum to our maximum, that actually represents 100% of the musical evenings. Then for half of the evenings in the fall musical, the attendance was less than 160. So our 50% mark is our median right here, which falls at 165. So then this statement is not true. In order for us to make it a true statement, this 160 would have needed to be the median's value, which was 165. Our interquartile range for the spring musical is 45. Remember, interquartile range is the difference from our third quartile. In this case, it will be 195 right here. And then our first quartile's value, which is 135. And it's the difference between those. Well, the difference between 195 and 135 is 60. So this is not a true statement because the range for the spring musical, it had an IQR of 60. Then our last statement, the range in attendance for the fall musical is 85. So I know range of an entire data set is the maximum, which for the fall musical is 225, minus the minimum, which for the fall musical was 140. Well, 225 minus 140 does give us a value of 85. So our final statement is true. All right, we have reached our learning target. So go ahead and pause the video and work out the problem on your own. When you're ready to solve it, when you're ready to check your solution, go ahead and unpause the video. All right, welcome back. So for what percent of students scored between 78 and 100? So 78 falls right here, and that point represents Q1. 100, which was our maximum, is right there. So we have 25% is from quartile 1 to quartile 2. From quartile 2 to quartile 3, that's another 25%. And then from quartile 3 all the way to the maximum is another 25%. Because remember, our box plot breaks up all of our data into quartiles. So the percent of students that scored between 78 and 100 is 75% of students. And then what is our median score of Mr. Mack's unit test grades? Well, this point in the middle of our box represents our median. So our median score was an 82. Thank you for learning with us today, boys and girls.